Good evening. We are live on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, but we want to be live on Facebook as well. So check us out on Mile High Huddle. Mile High Huddle podcast, your daily Denver Broncos coverage, and the Mile High Huddle Denver Broncos super fan group. We got all kinds of stuff we got going on here. With all of those, it means we got to let it breathe just for a little bit while the algos go out and find everybody. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Mile High Huddle podcast. Yes, in the immortal words of Korn, it is me again. I'm my host. I will be your co-host. I'm Scott Kennedy. You've seen me this morning. If you were watching this morning, this guy over on this side over here, that's Zack Kelberman. One half of your football priest. I will be filling in for Chad Jensen. He is unavailable tonight. He will be back on Thursday. So Zack and I have a lot of fun doing this together. And Zack, how are you doing this evening, my friend?
I'm doing good. We tend to, on these Monday shows, Scott, go over how we feel about 24 hours later, the aftermath episode of the last Broncos game. And I don't know about you, but I still feel the same as I did 24 hours ago, in the sense that it was a nice victory, but, it was a lot of lipstick on a pig, a lot of things that we had to overlook to celebrate the victory, and a lot of issues that still remain with the Broncos that need fixing, that even Sean Payton himself would tell you.
Zack, I tell you how I feel about it. It's like we use a phrase all the time. We don't want to tell people how to fan.
Mm-hmm.
But how I fan is if the players are still putting forth an effort, even if they're not good enough, is if they're trying, if they haven't checked out and they're still trying, I will continue to support them. Say, oh, you're not a real fan if you don't support them through thick and thin. Listen, I'll support my team. Doesn't mean I'm going to be diehard and playing my Saturdays and Sundays around them if I think they've checked out. Because if they don't care, why should I care about them? They will be gone. Y'all are Denver Broncos for life. This is a job for the people involved, except for the ownership group. This is a temporary job, and everybody else, unless they retire from here, will move on and have another job with another NFL franchise one day. What I saw, Zack, was a team that didn't give up. It could have been easy to, when the chips were down, you're going against another 0-3 team, and the Chicago Bears are going to give you a sniff. They're going to let you back into it. That's what happens with bad teams.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how good things are going, they're going to give you a sniff. Can you take advantage on it and put a little pressure on them and let that choke just start getting a little bit tighter, a little bit tighter? Ask me how I know what it feels like to blow a 28 to something lead. Because when it goes from 28-3 to 28-10, it hits your mind. No, it can't.
Mm-hmm.
No. And then it starts getting a little bit tighter, a little bit tighter. So if anything, the takeaway from this team is they fought. They fought, and you can be proud of them for that, even if they're still not very good, Zack.
Yeah, to your point, also when that first enters your mind, that's the first step toward a loss. When psychologically, when it gets into your head, that's it's all downhill from there. And the Broncos were very resilient, to their credit. I know they were facing a worse team, and you could say that the Broncos didn't win the game, the Bears lost the game, but I mentioned that last night, that they could have rolled over like they did in Miami, literally rolled over onto the ground and played dead and said, forget this, I don't want to be here anymore. They didn't give up. And even Vance's defense didn't give up. We all expected the offense to hang in there, and they did. They looked better in the second half. But Vance's unit, after another brutal first half, they turned it up in the third and fourth quarters, and that's commendable. But I'm still, Scott, at a very much show me and don't tell me. It's nice to get one victory over a dumpster fire, but let's get 2 victories in a row. Let's get 3 victories in a row. Then we'll start talking.
Yeah, I'm not making my plans for the playoffs, all of a sudden. And I didn't see anything that made me think, okay, this is all of a sudden going to be a 9-win team. This was 2 of the worst teams, probably the 2 worst teams in football right now, and they battled to the very end. And both of them looked good, both of them looked awful. And against a good team, you don't get a chance to come back like that. Against a bad team, you do. If you are a good team against a bad team, you put those teams away. And as you said, you could argue that one team lost it and the other team won it. With a 28-7 type of lead, you're complicit. There's both share on both sides. The Chicago Bears stopped doing things that were working in the first half. Why? I don't know. Lots of rollout, moving pockets, rollout waggles, crossing routes. Those just disappeared in the second half. Why? Ask the Bears, man. I don't know. But again, you've got to take advantage of it. And taking advantage of our time, we appreciate you coming in, Sam Bam.
Thank you,
Coming
Sam.
in with a super before we even got started. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your support. Says, hi, guys. Happy Victory Monday. We got our first win of the season and the first win in the Sean Payton era, though 1-3. It's been really encouraging to see how much better Russ has looked under Payton. Beat the Jets. Go Broncos. You asked a question last night. On the defensive side of the ball, who has looked better? Who has progressed? And, you know, it was a low bar because Nik Bonitto hardly played last year, but he's definitely looked better. On the offensive side of the ball, there's been some very important people that have looked considerably better, not the least of which is Russell Wilson. I thought Russell Wilson looked fantastic yesterday.
He was fantastic, and he's been playing fantastic for most of us, including yourself, Scott, that have been paying attention to the progression of Russell Wilson in Sean Payton's offense. And I have the numbers to back it up. I mean, just bear with me for a second. But Russell Wilson, after 4 games, is first in completions of 40-plus yards. He's second in touchdown passes with 9. He's tied for second in touchdown percentage, third in passer rating, 7th in yards per pass attempt, 8th in yards per completion, 9th in passing yards, and 9th in passing yards per game. I think it's fair to say, Scott, that Russell Wilson is fixed. Russell Wilson is back. It's looking a lot like the Seattle Russ, and that's why Sean Payton was hired. Unfortunately, Sean Payton's hire of Vance Joseph has made every other player on that side of the ball worse. I think you brought up Jonathan Cooper, or someone did in the side chat, and yeah, Cooper has been playing well in his expanded role, but if that's the best we can point to, I mean, if stars like Simmons and Surtain and even highly paid guys like Randy Gregory, they've all taken steps back. That's the common denominator. I wish they were complimentary on both sides, but here we are.
Yeah, the biggest problem with this team right now is other than Russell Wilson, your highest paid players aren't performing. And even that you can say, well, he's not playing to what he's getting paid. Well, this year he probably is. I think he's got a cap hit around 30. Next year it jumps up. It goes up big. For some reason, off the top of my head, it's like $27 to $30 million. That's about average for an average quarterback is $30 million. The big boys are making 50 right now. He's earned that money relative to his peers as well. Sam Dam, thank you so much. Michaela, the Duchess, coming in. Gives me a chance to say thank you for all of you do for MHH. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks, Michaela. She says, I love to see Russell Wilson back. Defense looked totally confused and out of position. That is coaching. At least Russ is back. When is the raffle? The raffle will be Thursday night. We'll do that on Thursday. So the numbers are in. Those are locked in. We're starting over again with the top 10 for YouTube and Facebook for October. So we're tallying those numbers up every day. But the raffle for the jersey will be Thursday night. We weren't going to do it tonight anyway because it's usually a little busier. And that's kind of a fun thing to do on Thursday. So thank you, Michaela. We talk scheme, we talk players, and I think one of the problems with this team is in your front 5 and your run stopping lack thereof ability to stop the run with your 5-man front, with your 3-down linemen and 2 edge guys, and then you throw in a running quarterback to go along with it. Your 2 linebackers, Singleton and Jewell or Singleton and Sanders, are moving towards a line of scrimmage to plug those holes constantly. Oh my goodness, were those drag routes right behind them open all day long? It was pitch and catch. It was like stealing money. The difference is when the Dolphins did that, they were hitting Tyreek Hill. When the Bears were doing that, they were hitting Cole Kmet. Good player. Yeah, but one of them's going to take it to the house, even if if you give him an inch. So not only were they out of position, they're undermanned too, Zach. They absolutely are. They're undermanned, especially, well, everywhere but maybe linebacker. They're just outgunned right now. Injuries and people coming back can help that dramatically, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, getting Baron Browning back, K'Wan Williams, Jewell, Simmons, that's all huge boosts for the defense, but you still have to wonder, Scott, even at full health, is this system good enough? Is Vance going to put those players in a position to succeed, or is he going to allow them to squander and give up 40 points a game like he's been allowing. It's one thing, Scott, even under man, to make Fields look a little better than he's played. I think we all kind of expected that. But to make him literally perfect through much of the first and second quarters, I mean, perfect passer rating.
No, it was the whole first and second quarters. His first incompletion was the Hail Mary at the end. He was 15 for 15 for 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a perfect passing rating. I don't know what it is, like 154.8 or 158.4 is perfect. He was perfect.
Something tells me that wouldn't have changed all that much, even if they were, fully healthy. It's still, to me, I know there's personnel issues in certain areas. I understand that fully, but still, this was the issue I had with Vance. A lot of Broncos fans had with Vance. It wasn't just one player, Scott. He made the entire unit that much worse, and that's what's so frustrating.
It's been too easy to beat. Roll the pocket, hit a dump off, and
no adjustment after the fact.
You don't have to worry too much about the pressure getting to you with a 4-man rush, even a 5-man rush at that much. And if I'm rushing 5, I've got 6 in coverage, I'm in deep trouble. And I'm on my 3rd safety. One of the guys I drafted to compete as a nickel or as a corner, somewhere in there, Riley Moss hasn't played a snap. K'Wan Williams is a much bigger loss to this team than anybody realized.
Agreed.
From a personnel standpoint, we worried about the high-low of the edge position because it was very volatile, especially if you lose Baron Browning then too. And you're only playing 3 guys. For the most part, you're playing Randy Gregory, Nik Bonitto, and Jonathan Cooper. Nik Bonitto has usurped Randy Gregory as a starter and got about 20 more snaps than him again this week. And Jonathan Cooper, unfortunately, had to take almost every single defensive snap. That's unsustainable. I mean, Jonathan Cooper is a nice player, but I want him being my second guy, not my number one. And then we've gone over and over again about the problems with the front 3, where Jonathan Harris, he's okay, but God, I'd like to see him back, in the rotation as well instead of being a starter. So it's absolutely scheme, but some of these guys coming back, I think you will see bolstered. Every position but interior DL should get better. And you're hoping, if I got Baron Browning on my shoulder, maybe Zack Allen starts playing a little better too.
That was my next point. Yeah, I mean, I'm not too shocked that Jonathan Harris, who shouldn't be a starter, is not performing like a starter, but Zack Allen was paid a ton of money, and he came from Arizona with VJ. I thought he'd be plug and play, instant upgrade over Draymond Jones, is the anchor up front, and hasn't been that. And he took responsibility as well. Today, he supported Vance and said they all believe in him and the company line, yada, yada. But that's what I said also a couple weeks ago. We can all crap on Vance, and it's very much well-deserved. But at some point, these players, Pro Bowlers, all pros, highly paid guys, they just have to want it more and just stay to their responsibility, stay disciplined, and beat their guy one-on-one. And too often, they're not doing that. Tackle
when you're supposed to tackle.
That'd be nice.
Those kind of things. We got some super chats and stars stacking up, so I want to say hello to some people. Stu was next in. Good to see you. What do I hear?
Zeus.
That's what I thought I heard. Good to see you, Stu. Says happy for the win, but I'm with Zack. Lots to work on, especially on defense. They know that. That's not a surprise to anyone.
Not a hot take.
Yeah, coaches. Like I said, it's bad when they're in denial, at least publicly. You say, "Oh yeah, we're playing Little Sisters of the Poor. They're really going to present a big challenge." No, they're not. It's the coach speak is lying, but they don't want to call them liars, so they call it coach speak. At this point, Sean Payton is saying, "Yeah, I told my team, you won, you came back, congratulations. You're not playing good enough. You're not playing well enough. Things still need to get a lot better." And they do, or else you're going to get you've already been embarrassed. You're going to stay embarrassed at the very least in professional pride. So thank you very much, Stu. Appreciate you being here. S.A. Ross has some amends to make. Zack, evidently y'all know each other through social media. Says, hey, Zack, sorry for the misunderstanding on Twitter. Love what you guys do and good luck this season until you play my Bolts. Cheers.
I'll give you all the backstory really quickly. And I appreciate you, Ross, for, making good on your comment that you always watch the pod. So basically, I had a comment on Twitter talking about Russell Wilson's performing at a certain level, and he's had an historically bad defense. And Ross came in, and he's a Chargers fan, and pointed to Justin Herbert's stats and said that the Chargers were also a bad defense. So impulsively, Scott, I posted a picture of an empty trophy case that was labeled Los Angeles Chargers. And then he came back and said, I'm just asking a question. And he was really cool about it. So I do, I'm also sorry for the misunderstanding. Didn't mean to jump the gun that quickly, but I respect the hell out of you, Ross, for making amends and coming on here and sticking true to your fandom.
Yeah, I grew up with the Air Coryell days, big time offenses and no defenses. That, to me, that is the San Diego Chargers. That is the Chargers. They were hella fun to watch, though, man. I'll tell you that. When Dan Fouts was leading that, Charlie Joyner, the bruising running back, Kellen Winslow, that was a fun team to watch back in the day. Sorry if that brings up some bad memories, but I would imagine Broncos got the better of them for most of those years. Michael Ranquillo, welcome in. He says, good evening, Zack and Scott on the Mile High Huddle podcast, The Aftermath. Good to see you, Michael. Appreciate you being here. Gary Leeds Palmer, the GLP, says, hey, Zack and Scott, a great combo. It's a trio now that you're here. Thank you, sir. It's looking forward to seeing you at the meet and greet in a couple of weeks as well. I'm pretty sure you're coming up. If not, we'll make sure you get up. So looking forward to seeing you. Steve Hale, I'll throw this one back to you. I thought the Chicago game was about how we would respond. I just didn't see the response we should have from a defense with great players. When is it time to pull the plug on Vance? Now, again, the defense that you put out there, how many great players are there? One. There's one. I would put Justin Simmons. I would say he would qualify as great. Not elite, but if you're all pro, man, you're a great player. After that, great players. DJ Jones, I think, is a good player. Zach Allen's is a good player that isn't playing that well. Jonathan Harris is a backup level. Jonathan Cooper, I would love to see as my second string rotation guy. Nik Bonitto, I would love to see as my pass rushing specialist. Randy Gregory is a good rotational piece. Let's forget what he's getting paid. He's getting paid like he's great. I've got lunch pail linebackers, guys that can do a job. Alex Singleton and maybe Drew Sanders could be great one day. I got Damari Mathis on one side. I got Delarian Turner-Yell, and I got K. Jackson. That's not great. Steve, that's not great. So as we've talked about, there's more talent than the production you're getting. Yes, that's true. That's on Vance Joseph. There's not enough talent that a new defensive coordinator rapidly, drastically changes the way this defense is playing, Zach.
I agree that there's only one truly great player on the Broncos defense, and there's a case to be made that there's a talent issue. But Scott, does a defensive coordinator need great players all over the defense to not allow 70 points or not allow Justin Fields to rack up touchdowns?
We can go back and forth on this. Let's look at a fuel tank or something and say, okay, here's empty and here's full. Full means, I've got all the talent in the world and it's on Vance Joseph. Right now you're not leaning this way. It's still somewhere closer to the middle where I can blame this on. Like I said, it's not. It's both. The players that you can give it back will help dramatically. I mean, we're talking almost half a defense here. We go Josie Jewell, starter. Go Baron Browning, starter. We go Riley Moss, possible starter and definite in sub packages, starter. There's 3. You lost Caden Stearns, starter. There's 4. He's not coming back. K1, he's done for the season.
Who?
Caden Stearns is done for the year.
Yeah, he's done.
Okay. I get confused with these short-term IR and, how long does it used to mean you were gone? And third pod of the day, I get confused. Sorry. K1 Williams, starter, especially in sub packages, when you're a nickel 3/4 of the time anyway. Well, what I get to 5 guys? There's half your defense right there of good players, solid players, average to better players. Right now, you've got a lot of replacement level, second string type guys out there that should be depth players. No, and again, this is not an excuse for Vance Joseph. It's not. It's just, listen, it feels so much better as a fan to say, man, if we would just fix this one thing is all we have to fix, just one, that would be so easy. Not that easy, Zach.
I guess my view, and you might disagree, is that a great defensive coordinator, even a good defensive coordinator, can take average or mediocre talent and make them serviceable. Vance Joseph takes elite talent and makes them bad. So it's kind of like King Midas in reverse, where everything he touches turns to crap. When's the time to pull the plug? I think that was after the Miami game, and now after a victory, he bought himself some job security. But the response you're talking about didn't show up in the first half. I think you started to see it, though, in the third and fourth quarters. After the break, the Broncos offense, I think the defense was feeding off the offense, Scott. We talked about that yesterday when the turning point was when they didn't roll over, when they made it 28-21. That was,
for me, it was 28-14. It was just going out and going back and say, we're down 28-7, going out there and throwing together a 75-yard scoring drive to cut the lead in half with 20 minutes to go, game on. The Chicago Bears will start to pucker.
Damn.
They absolutely will start to pucker when you're 2 scores with 20 minutes to go, and they did. They did, and it's an organizational thing right now. It's not just the players; it's the coaching staff, Zach.
It is, and they actually responded. The defensive players, they responded to the coaching staff. To Vance's credit, they played a lot better in the third and fourth quarters. The defense finally woke up. They forced turnovers. They took control of the game. And more importantly, they helped out the offense. The scales weren't tipped so unfavorably one side or the other, but it was still just one singular performance and one singular half that, to me, doesn't erase all the quarters and games and weeks of terrible football. That's why, show me, don't tell me.
Michaela Parker says, can we please crawl on hands and knees with heads down and beg? I mean, really beg Wade to come back. Wade Phillips, I'm guessing. Wade Phillips, come back. Please, Wade, we need you. Rosberg, how old was he when he was poached out of retirement last year?
68, 72, something like that, 78.
Wade Phillips right now is 76 years old. Can you bring him in as I can't even imagine trying to do this job full time at 76 years old. Man, I'm 50 and I'm looking forward to putting my feet up and reading books and, sipping cool drinks, let alone 76. But as an advisor, he's already knee deep in football. He hasn't left the game. These coaches, they never leave. They really don't. So as an advisor, why not? Why not put the phone call in? As a consultant? Sure. Why not, Zach?
I think there's a conflict of interest because Wade is still a part of the XFL's Rough Riders franchise, the Houston franchise, where I believe he's also the GM and the head coach. I could be wrong, but he's definitely a big part of that organization. Michaela, I mean, I tried my hardest. He follows me on Twitter. He responded to one of my threads recently. I said, so how about coming back, ... No response. I think,
and again, you could be able to be as a consultant, free agent, freelancer, not free agent, freelancer to do some stuff. Hey, take a look at this. What should we do differently?
I don't think
this dummy would say, make a team like the Chicago Bears beat you 6 yards at a time without making mistakes, and stop committing everybody to the run, especially in the middle of the field, and leaving those open lanes behind you because you're getting killed on drag routes. Killed. Just killed because you're not getting to the quarterback, and these guys have time to run full drag. That would be my first measure of advice, and I can't fill a thimble with what I know compared to somebody like Wade Phillips with my knowledge. So he could help. Those guys could help, and part of it is asking for help. Listen, I need some help. I'm struggling out here. Kobe C. Collier says, this win means nothing for the season, really, but what it does show hope for the future. Some players showed hope. Name a couple of those. Give me 3 guys that you're thinking, okay, these guys will be part of the Denver Broncos' future moving forward.
Honestly, Russell Wilson's not a cop-out answer. I mean, if the Broncos are going to be stuck with him, I'd rather get the good Russ than the bad Russ. But the obvious here is Jaleel McLaughlin, who had 102 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown, averaged 10.3 yards a carry, 10.7 yards per reception, and Marvin Mims, who leads the Broncos in receiving yards and leads the NFL in yards per catch. That is your foundation right there.
Jaleel, for those of you who partake in PFF, Jaleel was the offense's highest graded player with the whopping 87.3. He got dinged on his pass blocking. That's always going to be a problem. So you've got to find a way to put him in the flats. Make it, if you're going to blitz, he's got to be able to leak out quick enough that I know I can basically hit him with a lateral. Okay, that'll take care of that blitzing linebacker who's not going to catch him then. Now I'm running in behind him. Marvin Mims, absolutely. Find more ways to get him the ball. After that, you start looking at some big contracts too. And again, I like what I saw from Nik Bonitto as a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
I actually saw in the first quarter when I saw that he was starting, there was a nice seal block on the right end down in Chicago territory. I think it was on their first drive and you forced him to punt. And I was like, dude, sealed an edge. All I could see was the hair at the time. I'm like, was that Randy or was that Nick? That was Nik Bonitto. Nice job. That's how you seal an edge, kid. That's how you keep that starting position that you've had for the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks, he has put Randy Gregory on the bench. Doug Smith coming in. Look at all this orange. Look at all this Bronco orange. I love it, y'all. Thank you so much. I just can't see throwing away Russell on pace for 36 touchdowns and nine picks, 4,000 plus yards to rebuild when we deserve to see this offense with the defense from last year, which there we just need to remove one man. I'm not going to say you're wrong on the one man thing for next season because you'd have the opportunity to then get more players in the draft, another round of free agency. And if you can get this Russell Wilson again next year, you could be a pretty good team. You could, because you're not that far off and you will have some flexibility. You'll have to either replace them, extend them or whatever, but you'll have some cap flexibility if Russell Wilson can play. His cap hit's not astronomical next year either. I think it's the year after that where it goes nuclear. I'll have to double check on that. Like I said, third one of these I've done today, but I think his cap number is okay right now. Cap hit right now is 22. I think it goes to 37 next year. Yeah, his cap hit, his base next year, cap hit next year, 2024 is 35.4. That's still relatively cheap for a plus quarterback, Zach.
I mean, I'm interested. What's Deshaun Watson's cap hit for next year? Something like that.
It'll be pretty a well-rounded 50 almost across the board, probably 55.
It's still a value compared to Russ, and Russ is playing light years better than Deshaun Watson right now. So that's what I'm saying. If we're going to be stuck with Russ, I'd rather than be getting the Seattle Russ than the Hackett Russ. But Doug, I assume you mean remove one man, VJ. I mean,
right.
That's the obvious, but it's not 100,000% on him either. They would have to remove some of the players on that defense that have no business starting. I'm looking at you, Jonathan Harris, for example, Randy Gregory before he lost his starting job. There is a case to be made that the personnel just isn't up to snuff, but I do think it's addition by subtraction. You take away VJ and you plug in literally anyone, even the computer on Madden, and it would be an improvement on what we've seen. And you even get an average defense with the Broncos offense that's humming at a top 10 rate right now. That's a playoff team, no questions asked.
I've got a lot of cap flexibility next year if Russell Wilson's my quarterback. I'm okay. I can make some changes. I've got Tim Patrick. I've got Cortland Sutton. I've got Garrett Bowles. You'd have to find a replacement left tackle. That's important. I've got Randy Gregory. There's $13 million. So again, with these guys, if the offense is still playing like it is, which is pretty well, it's not fantastic, but we're 4 games into a brand new system here.
Yeah.
Could get better. Free agency money, I grabbed 3 free agents, plug them in on the defensive side of the ball, get them playing right, like you're saying, one man, Doug, and your defense is not that far away. But you got to get healthy, and you got to put some resources, some legitimate resources into the safety position. You can't just count on Caden Stearns and Kareem Jackson. I don't care how old he is. If he's 29, if he's 35, it's time. It was time to move on last year. You got to get another 300-pound guy that can make a difference on your interior line, and do what you can on the edge. If you have to throw bodies at it, that's fine. But you need another edge too, and then hope your corners get healthy. Keeping us healthy is Seth Harmon coming in with another bright orange Broncos super chat. He says, "It's Chandler Jones an option? Randy Gregory is a swing and a miss. I don't really want to see Bassey or McMillan in man against anyone with help coverage of KJ and Turner Yell. The secondary is brutal. There's been some pretty good injuries there's 3 injuries to your base nickel package. That's 60% of your defensive secondary that are out right now. 2 safeties, nickel corner, and probably your number 4. So out of 6 guys, you're talking about 2/3 of your secondary is not healthy right now. Is Chandler Jones an option? And
No.
didn't he just get waived by the Raiders because he's having some serious health problems, like mental health breakdown problems?
I don't know that he was waived. I think he's on NFI or the commissioner's list, something, but he's not
The
welcome back.
non-football injury list.
Yeah, he's not welcome back because he's been going on social media and accusing Josh McDaniels of the wildest things, including murdering Aaron Hernandez in prison, implicating him in that conspiracy theory. I hope Chandler Jones gets the help that he needs because it's obvious he has some sort of mental health disorder, whether that's CTE. I know it's a touchy subject, but no, to answer your question, Seth, absolutely not. If you don't like Randy Gregory, Chandler Jones is like 1,000 times worse from a locker room point of view.
Yeah, that's a big no. Right now, Seth. Appreciate the question. Phil McLaughlin coming over on Facebook. Good to see you. Says, good evening, Zach and Deacon Scott. Very pleased with Mims and McLaughlin. Cannot wait to get our injured defensive players back. Any news on Pookie? Javonte Williams went out with a hip injury, and you're going to have to probably wait until Wednesday for the injury report to hear anything. They're not required to say anything before then, and Sean Payton will not say anything before then, Zach.
He actually talked about that today, and I wrote up the story if y'all want to check it out on milehighhuddle.com. Sean Payton basically said no comment, and as per usual, he will not get into injuries. It's a hip. That's all we know for Javonte, and doesn't sound overly serious, but like you said, Scott, we won't know until Wednesday when the team practices again and the first injury report comes out. Fortunately, though, they do have McLaughlin in the back pocket. They have P. Ryan that can be the starter if Javonte misses time. I'm just excited, Scott, about Jaleel getting more playing time. I mean, he is absolutely electric.
Yeah, his subtle movement in traffic, he can be a between the tackles runner. And you don't normally say that. You've got to be pretty special to do that when you're his size. He's under 200 pounds, but he's got such subtle movements in order to avoid contact and set up feints and then run through arm tackles. He's really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, Phil. Doug Smith, he comes in. Who is the top dog? The Chiefs. Do we forget how hard we've played them for years now? Only needing that little bit of offensive help matched with good coaching to finally do it. 2 comments on this, Zach, and they're questions, so to speak, kind of rhetorical. What's the Broncos' record against the Chiefs?
0 forever.
Okay. The second one is that in soccer, everybody plays everybody twice. They don't do playoffs. You add up whoever wins the most games, gets the most points at the end, and that's your champion. There's a phrase that calls the table don't lie. You may match up okay with the Chiefs and play good enough to not ever beat them, but you're playing them tough. But over the course of 17 games, the standings aren't lying. You're 7 or 8 games behind the Chiefs right now. That said, you can turn that around fairly quickly in this league because of the parity. But all of the things that we think are going to work haven't. Yeah. Right tackle. We're going to get to you, Dave, next because I think we got an answer for this one. Throw a ton of money at right tackle. It hadn't gotten better. Left guard's gotten a little bit better. The defensive backfield, no. Zach Allen for Draymond Jones has been a downgrade. Jonathan Harris for Deshaun Williams has been a downgrade. There's these things that you're hoping to see fixed that haven't been. So every time you want to take 2 steps forward, you take 3 back. And that's where the Broncos have been since I've covered this team for 3 years, Zach.
Listen, the way I look at it, the Jets played the Chiefs really hard last night. But what was the end result? A loss. And what was the end result in the last, again, like 40 Chiefs-Broncos games? A loss for Denver. I'm not big on moral victory, Scott. You either win or you lose. And the Broncos haven't beaten the Chiefs in, I think, 8 years now. So you're right. They've tried everything, replacing personnel. They've tried facing Kansas City without Patrick Mahomes, and Matt Moore still beat them. I don't want to hear about playing them tough or competitive. It doesn't matter. You still lost the game. I want to see them go out there, play them tough, and come out with a victory. And that will start in week 6, hopefully, when they have some momentum propelled by beating the Jets. Otherwise, they're going to get dog walked by Kansas City. Let's be honest.
And the Chiefs get everybody's best shot. They are the top dog. They get everybody. You get up for the Chiefs games. You're playing them on national TV. You're probably in prime time when you play them. So playing them tough, good. There's fine margins in this league. But then what happens when you turn around and you go to Buffalo, or you're hosting the New York Jets,
Right.
or the Raiders come to town who have your number too? So again, it's not getting up for one game, 1 or 2 games. It's a 17-game season. And, for the past several years, the table hadn't lied. And like I said, the things that you're expecting to get better, we're quarterback away. We get a quarterback. Ooh. Had a curmudgeon-y first-time defensive coach. Let's get an offensive innovator in here. Ugh. Sean Payton. Well, what we expected Sean Payton to be good at, he has been to this point. Sean Payton, the general manager, still makes me nervous, Zach. That makes me nervous. I'll be flat out honest with you. Forget about the coaching aspect of it. I'm talking about shopping for the groceries. I don't like it when the head coach is your GM.
A lot of questionable moves. I'll grant you that. The Brandon McManus release, the Albert O trade. I mean, there's just certain things. Obviously, the hiring of VJ. Those are all black marks against Sean Payton's record, even though he's done a lot more good than bad. I will say, though, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, though. If there's a year for the Broncos to finally take down KC, it might be this year. I've watched every Kansas City game, or at least the highlights, and they don't look like the same juggernaut for one reason or another. Whether that's injuries or Chris Jones holdout or Taylor Swift, they look a little beatable, Scott. And Sean Payton has a decent history against Andy Reid, I'm pretty sure. So maybe this is the year.
It's September. That's what I think it is for me. It's they will make the playoffs, and then we find out. Until then, they're still the Chiefs, and they're going to win their 12 games. They're going to get into the playoffs, and they're going to be a handful.
Yeah.
Dave from Georgia. Hey guys, this is a great question. This one's kind of fun, Zach. This is kind of one that ends up taking us from 35 minutes to 55 minutes. And we go, where the hell did time go? Hey guys, who is your pick for biggest disappointment, and who would you say has been the most pleasant surprise to start the season? Biggest disappointment for you, Zach. I'll let you go first.
You mentioned Mike McFlinchie. That's number 1, the right tackle who just can't stop committing false starts. I haven't been blown away at all by Zack Allen. We talked about him. And I want to throw out there only because it's a little personal for me. I've gone to bat for him countless times over the last year. And that would be Randy Gregory. I mean, to get paid all that money, I know his contract is a little bit of a mirage, Scott. You can get out of it if you want to, but he's still a very highly paid, a highly counted on edge rusher who's being replaced now by Nik Bonitto, who's done pretty much all of nothing as an NFL pro. But far and away, Zack Allen, Mike McGlinchey, I'll say his name for real, disappointing.
Yeah, he's on about 2 years, $26 million, but you are an 8-figure edge, and you're playing on a level fairly similar with less effort than Jonathan Cooper, who was a 7th-round draft pick.
Yeah.
On Randy Gregory. Randy Gregory on defense gets my vote, and then on the other side, Mike McGlinchey probably gets my vote on the other one. And on that level, biggest surprise for me, I'll let you go first.
Russ, how is it?
I'll let you go first, so you didn't think I was stealing yours.
How is it anything other than Russell Wilson? He looked so dreadful last season. I mean, mostly due to Hackett. I'm going to be, full disclosure, that we were counting that he had more bathrooms in his house than touchdown passes. This year, he's second in the NFL in touchdown passes, has more than Mahomes, Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Matt Stafford, and a few others as well. So yeah, we figured that Sean Payton would revitalize Russ, but I wasn't expecting it to be so soon and so sudden as it is, Scott.
The other one I might say, and it's not really, that Russell Wilson is playing at a high level this quickly in this offense is probably my biggest surprise, because we weren't sure we were going to get. Right. But, Marvin Mims having this early of an impact is a pleasant surprise for me. But, we thought he could be the wide receiver 3 pretty quickly out there and maybe even move into number 2. They traded up for him again. You mentioned stuff about, Sean Payton, the general manager, trading up And giving away draft picks when you desperately need cost-controlled players and more talent is another one of those moves that's a little scary. If you hit on guys like Marvin Mims and they become, legit big play wide receivers and special teams guys, then you're feeling pretty good about yourself on this. After that, it gets hard, man. You start going, okay, who are the top rated guys? Like, I don't want to forget anybody. So I bring up Pro Football Focus and I sort by top offensive guys, and it's Marvin Mims is number 1. Russell Wilson is number 2. Jaleel McLaughlin has to be in this. He's an undrafted rookie free agent who's playing great. Garrett Bowles, Quinn Miners, and then guys with some snaps. The next highest guy is then Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, and they're in the 60s. Ben Powers is in the low 60s. Lloyd Cushenberry, I was like, he's okay, but he's still like 22 or 23 instead of 29 or 30. So great question, Dave. Really appreciated that one.
Scott, where does Damari Mathis check in from the grades yesterday? Because that's my other
down. Let me spin that thing like The Price is Right. Let me slip over to defense.
Probably near the bottom.
That's him. He's in red.
Yep.
He is DFL at 29.8. He's the only one in the 20s. Drew Sanders comes in at 35.8. Fabian Moreau, Isaiah Bassi, Alex Singleton is at 44.2, which surprises me. It really does. I think he's doing some decent things out there. Damari Mathis has struggled.
Yeah,
he's struggled. And as far as all the ratings go, the highest one is Josie Jewell, and he's the only one in the 70s. Everybody else is 66.4 or below, and that's Pat Surtain at 66.4, which puts him as the 43rd ranked cornerback in the NFL.
We call that the Vance Joseph effect.
Yeah, it's like putting a multiplier on there. Yeah, that's tough. Whew. Good question. We were at Dave from Georgia. We didn't say hey to David McElrath, the Papa Bear. Says good evening, Broncos country. Zack, Deacon, Scott, and Dylan. 1-3. That's my birthday, dude. Number 1-3. 1-3 is my birthday. So now I'm confused. See, this is why I was terrible at crossword puzzles. Once I have an answer in my head, it's locked. I can't think of anything else. Number 1, 03. Number 9, 8. Hashtag 1 and 3, hashtag 9 and 8. There we go. MHH for life, Buckham times 3, and Denver Broncos for life. Having to make me think outside the box, David. I appreciate you expanding my mind on that one. William Anderson coming in with some stars. Thank you for the support over on Facebook. Appreciate you. Phil McLaughlin says, guys, did Evero have 70 points put up on D last year? What was the worst one? Was the Christmas Day Massacre last year?
Yeah. It was 54-14, I think.
What was that score? Let's see, 2022. It was 51-14. And part of this, the fast start by the Broncos defense, part of it was the opposition. At Seattle with Geno Smith as a new starter, against Houston, who finished with the number 1 overall pick, San Francisco with a coach that hated his quarterback and Jimmy Garoppolo making his first start, at Las Vegas. Derek Carr was okay, and they did score 32 points. That, my God, everybody should be refunded, gouge my eyes out. Indianapolis Colts game at Denver was week 5. At Los Angeles, that was 1916. That was a very good defensive effort. 16-9 loss to New York with a disaster, maybe the worst quarterback play in the league. Those are your first 6 games. Part of that was good fortune too. When you were playing well, yes, but come on, there's mitigating circumstances there too as well. And I'm not saying Evero, we'd take him back here in a freaking heartbeat. Yes, I know. But he's not the second coming of the 46 defense with the 85 Bears.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't happen, Phil, because it hadn't happened since 1966, where a team scores 70 points in a single game. And, I look at what the Dolphins did in week 4 versus week 3. They played the Bills. They scored 20 points. They scored 24 before they played the Broncos. So the 70-point was an aberration in the offensive sense, but on the defensive sense, it was a major red flag that this unit and this coaching staff has a lot of issues. I don't think Evero could help make Jonathan Harris, for example, a better player, or Damari Mathis a better player, but I think he would mitigate the circumstances in which they're exploited, Scott. I think he would find other ways to use the talent to make the defense as a whole a little more respectable. Doesn't have to be top 5, but do they have to be 32?
No. Like it just gets into a degree of blame. It's not talent or coordination. It's both. Which one do you want to put more on the scale of, and how much? What in what favor do you think it's weighted? Because it's both. You're going to have to address both to reach your goals. Michaela Parker says, just ask Russ to restructure his contract and keep him. That's my opinion. Zach, what do you think about that?
I mean, it takes 2 to tango. Russ would have to be open to doing that. And again, we talked about this on last week's pod. I mean, he signed the contract the Broncos put in front of him. He's under no obligation. It doesn't make him anything, evil if he doesn't want to restructure or take less money. That was the deal the Broncos cut. But I think he'd be a little more open to it than people want to make it seem. They make it seem like Russ is all about the money and very greedy and not a team player. I think he's kind of the antithesis of that, where if the Broncos would go to him, or at least if Sean Payton went to him or Greg Penner, he would be open to it.
Here's the problem I have with it is he's still owed. Let's say you keep him next year, okay? Whereas cap hit's not that bad, and then it really balloons. To restructure his contract, you owe him roughly $96 million in guaranteed money, 25 on. So from 2025 on, he's 37 years old. In order to get someone to restructure the contract, you typically have to pay them more money. You just push it back into later years. So, okay, we free up some cap space to keep his cap space low like it's been since he's been on the roster. But then when he's 39 years old, he's got a $65 million dead cap hit again. When he's 40 years old, it goes to $100 million dead cap hit. You just keep kicking it down the road. You're better off if you can get 2 years from him. If you can get 2 years of productive play and dealing with the contract that you've got now, which would be a $35 million cap hit in 2024 and a $55 million cap hit in 2025 when he's 37 years old, then you have flexibility. Then you've got the ability to get out from that deal without too much pain. It's still a $30 million dead cap hit, but it's half. It's a $58 million cap hit and a $38 million dead cap hit. It's $21 million in savings. I could spread that across 2 years and get $17 million a year, which is a whole lot better than what you're looking at. You don't want to restructure a declining player, big money declining player. It just, you'll end up back here in 3 years when we're sitting here, Michaela, and we're talking about why is this team unable to go out and reinvest money? Because you're restructured a 36-year-old declining quarterback. Man, take it. The next 2 years, if you can get good play out of him the next 2 years, your chances of this turning around is going to be so much better. So much better, Zach.
Yeah, you're right. That's a really good point, that if you restructure Russell Wilson, you're pretty much stuck with him for longer. It removes your escape hatch, so to speak, in the Russell Wilson deal. And you want your Russ experience to be front loaded because of the age that you mentioned, Scott. He's only going to start declining as he gets older. I mean, it's father time. It's undefeated. So you want, like you said, to extract as much good play out of him in his young, in his early late 30s and in his late 30s, early 40s. So yeah, I don't think a restructure would be all that realistic for the Broncos front office.
I see another question coming from Mikhail. I'm going to go ahead and get to it. I was looking something up, so let me bring this up here real quick. How do you guys feel about bringing in Mark Schlereth? I haven't actually had to say his name ever before. Okwebanam's no problem. Schlereth as defensive coordinator. I'm like, has he ever done anything on defense, Zach? That's why I don't know enough about him.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing. I mean, how much coaching experience, at least on a professional level, does he have? I mean, it's one thing that he's, full of spit and vinegar and he's a fan favorite, but it doesn't always translate to being a good coach. Just like being a good guy like VJ or Nathaniel Hackett. They're good people, but not necessarily good coaches. I think also, Scott, he's happy in the media right now, giving out his hot takes and forming an analysis on the team through that lens as opposed to coaching.
Yeah, he went directly from playing into media. I don't think I just checked his wiki page. He hasn't done any coaching that I can tell, Michaela. So I would say it doesn't make a lot of sense for me right now. I get so tired. I came up with the phrase when I was watching this, when I first got into this business, and I was watching these same crappy coaches just keep getting recycled over and over and over again. And I said to myself, just because you have a job doesn't mean you're the most qualified for it.
Right.
I was like, oh, he's been a defensive coordinator for 20 years. He's never been worth a damn. He just keeps getting jobs because it says, oh, he's been defensive coordinator at these different schools. And go find somebody coaching in the MAC, in the Southwestern Conference in college, where they actually have to coach, where they don't go out there and I don't want to go to Ohio State for an offensive coordinator. What do? They out-talent 13 of the 4 teams they play. That's not coaching. I want to get the guy for the Ohio Bobcats who has to line up with them in the MAC and play against teams 12 games. And he's got the number 1 defense in the conference, and he's playing against 11 teams that are equal to or better than he is on talent wise. I get tired of this, Zach. I get tired of seeing the same guys fail, hire. And frankly, I think that's what part of the Rooney Rule is guys, quit hiring the guys and go do some exploring, for God's sakes.
Exactly. And the Broncos did that last year. They brought in Najiro Evero. Not many people even knew his name. He was a secondary coach in Los Angeles, and he turned out to be a gem. It's kind of like finding the next Sean McVay on the defensive side. You got to turn over some rocks until you find the gems, instead of going with the has-beens and the have-nots in VJ's
never
case.
Will be's.
Exactly.
Some of these guys never had a prime. This guy here is dead. Cross him off then. Sorry, it's major league time. It's getting late for me.
Great.
BK Mark coming in says, I can't recall. I thought Vance's first soiree with there's a big word. God, we're getting fancy here on the Mile High Huddle podcast. I thought Vance's first soiree with the Broncos was plagued with players quitting on him, or am I mistaken?
It was just marked by bad defensive play, but worse offensive play. It was marked by everything else, that you've heard.
Other than that, man,
yeah,
good.
Other than that, Miss Lincoln, how'd you enjoy the play tonight? I mean, it was the quarterback carousel. It was never having the franchise guy. I don't really recall too many players. I know there was like the Emmanuel Sanders controversy and Chris Harris and Aqib Talib. Those were all big personalities, but I think it was more of an offensive problem and rolling out with the likes of Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch and Brock Osweiler, then Case Keenum in VJ's second season.
You could use some of that right now, as long as they can play. The problem with Randy Gregory is not his attitude; it's that he's ineffective.
Yeah,
there's that the hot crazy scale for significant others. How hot are they, and how much crazy are you willing to deal with? It goes the same way with talent. Talent crazy. If they're really good, we don't mind the fact that they're a real pain in the ass and their dad's calling up and their agents all over the place. Yeah, but he's getting 2 sacks a game and doing it. So BK Mark, that predated me on that with Vance's first soiree, but it was first year coach, 3 first-year coaches in a row, wasn't it, Zach?
Yeah, it was Vance, then Vic, then Hackett. Good times.
Yep. So again, Sean Payton, the general manager, scares me a little bit. How can it go wrong, Scott? That's how it can go wrong. It's talent evaluation in coaching, in player. It's a different skill set. And frankly, I don't want the guy that is coaching my number 1 wide receiver having to draft him and negotiate his contract too. And I know he wouldn't be doing that hands-on, but if you're a general manager, you've got final say on all that stuff. RD, We're about to get out of here, y'all. We just have a couple more minutes. Tonight has flown by. RD coming in, the yellow super chat. Thank you, my friend. He says, what do you guys think the cause of all the offensive penalties? They've had some drive killers. I think our right tackle is on pace for the most penalties by a lineman ever. It's a long time. They've been playing this game a long time. You start talking about ever in the NFL, you've done something.
Well, ironically enough, I saw a stat that through 4 games, the Broncos have the worst defense in recorded NFL history, according to DVOA, since 1984, at least, since they've been recording that stat. So it does hold a strong word with the Broncos. McGlinchey, we're talking about him. I think it's a product of him being new, obviously, but also missing so much time in training camp and the preseason and first finding that chemistry. I talked about it 2 months ago. With an offensive line, you need all 5 guys out there consistently to get those reps down. You need that harmony. Otherwise, you see it start to fall apart in certain areas. And I think McGlinchey has proven that, Scott.
You get the cadence. It's hard to play offense. If you've ever gone to an all-star game practice, as soon as they switch the quarterbacks, there's like 6 false starts in a row as they get there. So get comfortable. The big contract, there's pressure to perform. You start feeling all that. I mentioned the Chicago Bears choking. There's pressure to perform under that big contract. And he's got to settle in. And frankly, he missed all of preseason. You know, he's 4 weeks into this with his play because he was out all training camp with an injury. So you got to hope. He needs to come good because you're stuck with him for 3 years. We're talking about big dead money. His contract balloons the next 2 years. He's cheap. He's cheaper than Josie Jewell right now, Zach. BK comes back in. He says, is Nik Bonitto's performance a fluke? Is it sustainable? We hit on this a little bit earlier. On the plays that he made his big plays on, he came in unblocked. He played better. But the good thing, though, is he's got the athleticism that if you miss an assignment, he's going to make you pay for it. So we talk about teams making mistakes all the time. Can you make them pay for it? Oh, we forced an interception. We got the ball on the 20, but we went 3 and out and didn't score. Well, crap, you got to make the teams pay for that. Nik Bonitto is athletic enough to make a team pay. He's not going to come free 3 times a game without getting blocked, though.
Yeah, I mean, we won't know until we know, BK. Obviously, I know it's kind of a cop-out answer, but I want to see him put it all together consistently. Every time we've seen a Nik Bonitto breakout in one game, he went back to being invisible the next game, and we won't know if that's a product of him or Vance's defense or anything, but given the starting role now, he'll be getting more opportunities as a pass rusher, and with more opportunities comes more chances to get to the quarterback. We have to hope, though, that it's not a fluke. He was a second-round pick of the Broncos, pretty much their first-round pick in last year's draft in 2022, and they're counting on him. Baron Browning's still down right now. Gregory looking like a trade candidate or at least a bench warmer. You have to start getting the young players into prominent roles, Marvin Mims included. I hope Nik Bonitto takes advantage of his opportunity.
Yeah, I think he's a good piece. I don't know that he's a starter. If he becomes a designated pass rush specialist, I've said about Nik Bonitto, if he beats you to the inside, if he beats you to the outside, shame on you. You haven't watched any film. His move right now is speed around the edge. And every left tackle in the world, if they know where you're going, they'll just steer you right on outside. So as I see him coming through, I'm like, oh, wow. How'd he get in? Do I have to give a shame on you to the tackle? I'm like, well, hell, nobody blocked him. That's a shame on everybody. Nobody blocked him. So if he's coming free, then good for him. But no, that part of it's not sustainable. And 2.5 sacks a game, probably not. That would break all kinds of records. But he's playing better. He's absolutely playing better, and he's improving. Just don't expect the second coming of LT, which is what you got this last game, is all I'm saying. Is pump the brakes a little bit and have more realistic expectations that he can become a productive member of your defense, which he was not last year. Michael Ranquillo about ready to close us out. He says, great show tonight. Zack and Scott on the Mile High Huddle podcast. Aftermath, go Broncos. And I'll throw in a buckum for you. And Zack, I'm sure you got some messages for us before we get out of here.
Yes, I do. I can't believe it's approaching 1 hour already. You were right, Scott. We had that one question. 20 minutes later, we're like, Men in Black when that memory zapper goes off. But that was the MHH podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on Twitter at the MHH pod. You can follow the mothership on Twitter at Mile High Huddle, Scott at Scout Kennedy, myself at Kelberman NFL, and our other football priest, Chad Jensen, who'll be back Thursday at Chad and Jensen. If you want some Buckham merch, check it out, mhhmerch.com. If you're not doing so, please give us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Also find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle, and make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review, and also Deacon Scott, for a chance to win some swag each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, guys and gals, ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans, just like you.
It felt like a fast one. I thought that was a fast rat-a-tat-tat coming. I
Like to change it up.
thank you to our super chat superstars and our stars on Facebook. Y'all, it's truly humbling, the support that you give us on this channel.
Yeah.
And it's encouraging. Hey, they love us. They really love us. Thank you so much. Not you, Scott. We're just here to tolerate you. You'll be gone again tomorrow. Sam Bam, Michaela, Stu, S.A. Ross from the Bolts, Gary Palmer, Steve Hale. Michaela Parker came in a couple times. Thank you very much. Doug, Seth Harmon, Doug Smith, Dave from Georgia, David McElrath, BK Mark, RD, and BK. And on Facebook, Michael Ranquillo, Colby C. Collier, Phil McLaughlin, William Anderson. Phil came in a couple times, and if I miss you, I apologize. Things were scrolling by fast and furious. Love y'all. Thank you so much. Like I said, it is truly humbling being able to come out here and talk football with y'all.
Broncos for breakfast tomorrow, right, Scott?
Yes, sir.
Catch that tomorrow. Building the Broncos tomorrow night. Mile High Insiders on Wednesday. Building the Broncos again on Thursday, right, Scott? There you go. And then we'll be back, Chad and I, in the saddle Thursday night, MHH podcast. We'll see you then. Have a great week. Take care. And as always, go Broncos. Nailed it.